So let's answer some of the community's questions about water tanks. So our first question is asking if skills such as relaying and signal boosting result in the radio operator earning more XP as a result of having to deal with increased comms traffic, and it mentions the loader getting more XP for loading more shells. There's a lot to unpack here, including several misconceptions. For one thing, crew members don't earn independent XP based on their performance in battle. The amount of XP displayed on the battle results screen is both the XP gained on the vehicle and the XP awarded to every member of that crew, regardless of the number of crew members. Modifiers such as reserves, the mentor skill, and accelerated crew training apply their benefits to this number. One exception to this rule is if a crew member finishes a battle in a knocked out state, that crew member will receive 10% less XP than they otherwise would. This is one reason why I never check accelerated crew training. Accelerated crew training pours the tank XP into the least experienced crew member, essentially training them twice as fast. While yes, this will train the crew faster, it is woefully inefficient when you think about converting free XP. Free XP to crew XP has a conversion rate of 1 free XP to 5 crew XP. And occasionally a special will take it up to 1 for 10. If you can afford to save the combat XP on the tank and convert it to free XP, you can essentially use that XP to get 5 times the value that you would get by just pouring the base combat XP into the weakest crew member using accelerated crew training. Potentially a little less if crew reserves were active at the time of the farm, but potentially 10 times the value if a 100% combat XP booster was used during it. Do not use accelerated crew training to train your crew. Save that XP, and if you can afford to get some gold to convert that into free XP, you will get far more bang for your buck out of pouring the XP into the crew member from free XP than you will pouring the base value, which is 5 times less, into a crew member. One may be free, but the other one is 5 times, or potentially if you do it during an event, 10 times more effective, so do bear that in mind. So in summary, no. Skills like relaying and the such will not increase the XP that a crew member receives because the entire crew receives the same XP as your tank does from a battle before modifiers are applied. Are autoloaders just plainly better than regular tanks? In most situations I can think of, they are, especially the bursty 2-shot ones. 2-shot autoloaders are one of the dumber things that Wargaming has implemented into the game as of late. For the longest of times, one of the weaknesses of having an autoloader was difficulty finding time to fully unload and trade effectively without overexposing, or being left with just half a clip left and a choice to make. 2-shot autoloaders completely ignore that problem for the most part. Their exposure time is so limited that it completely removes one of the primary weaknesses, one of the primary balancing factors of an autoloader. Yes, you can do huge damage, but it takes time and you have a long reload. These tanks just ignore that completely. These tanks can essentially play like a single-shot tank, but just with twice the damage. It is ridiculous and damaging for the game balance. So while I think tanks like the 5100, the MX-50B, even the T-54E1 are balanced and powerful, high skill cap, good examples of well implemented autoloaders, I despise the impact of tanks like the Brasc VZ-55 and to some extent the T-57 Heavy for the reasons I've just described. Can a tank with no ammunition be Ammoracked? This one we tested the old faithful the Leo 1, the drivable Ammorack. As it turns out, if a tank has no ammunition, it cannot receive Ammorack damage. Likewise, if the tank only has 1 shell left and it's loaded into the gun, the tank also cannot receive Ammorack damage. In fact, it's only when you have shells remaining in the Ammorack, waiting to be loaded, but you can get the Ammorack damaged and destroyed. Nice little attention to detail by Wargaming there. Okay, so if we have one shell, surely... Hey, Peabody.
Yeah, see how good you are. See your tank awareness. Line yourself up in front of my gun for an Ammorack. Wait a sec, you're in a fucking FB. As soon as it clicked, I realized I wasn't paying attention at first. Okay, I'm sorry. Over. Fuck, that's an FB. I knew it as soon as I saw FB. Wait, I'm dead. I'm done. Bye.
I was like, I poked around the corner, you were like there.
A moment of realization. Wait a second, that's a fucking FE.
That's not a Leo. Oh shit. Okay. Alright. Anyway, where were we? Did you enjoy when it was possible to climb many more places? Was that only a big problem, or why was it removed? I really enjoyed the climb to sneaky places with you days. Yes, I did personally enjoy that. Maybe that's just because I'm evil, I'm a bit of a dick, but the implementation and rising prevalence of climbs in random battles was something I was very intrigued by. Yes, there were some climbs that absolutely wrecked the balance of a map, but even that necessitated the use of counter climbs. And you can see this showcased perfectly in some of the World of Tanks esports events at the time, where the top teams in the world would perfect these climbs and counter climbs, and they became a crucial part of the top echelon of team-based play.
But we can see God Emperor Bed's going to be trying to spot out as Dodoma, and the T100 Light Tank is going to be trying to make it up. He might make the first part. He will make the first part. Solid climb there coming out from him. He's spotted out, so he needs to be careful. I don't think he can make it all the way to the top when he's spotted out like this.
I would say, can you even abort this pull? This jump, sorry?
No, you can't.
You can't really just say, oh, I've been spotted, now I have to back off. You pretty much have to make it and then hunker down up top.
Now, I totally get why this ability was taken out. It shattered the balance of certain maps, particularly in randoms. The only negative point I really have for wargaming in this area is around rumours. There were rumours I heard about players being banned for using these climbs in random battles. And from my point of view, if wargaming are watching and allowing the the best players of their game to use these climbs and counter climbs in professional esports events, then banning players for using mechanics that you yourself essentially endorsed is wildly hypocritical and shitty behaviour, in my opinion. That said, while I get why they were removed, I very much enjoyed playing about with them while it was still possible. Bush mechanics. Do all the spottable points of a tank count when firing through a bush at distance, or just the gun point? For example, one's ass is not hidden, do you get spotted when firing? This is an interesting one. We need to brush up on the relevant camo and bush mechanics very quickly. When a tank fires, its camo rating will drop to a certain amount. It also causes any foliage within 15 meters of it to temporarily provide only 30% of that bush's original camo to the vehicle that fired. All other vehicles that didn't fire maintain the same concealment from those bushes. This is why good players will reverse 15 meters behind a bush to fire through it, so that the bush retains its full camo rating. The question here is, given that the hull of all vehicles have spottable points, front, sides and rear, what counts as 15 meters away from foliage? Is it 15 meters to the closest spottable point of the vehicle, or is it 15 meters from where you're viewing from, which would be the base of the gun? From our tests, it turns out it's from the gun. Firing my gun here, just as the bush hits 15 meters away in my view, with the front of my hull well within 15 meters of that bush, did not cause the bush to lose any camo rating. Bear in mind that when using the trick of reversing 15 meters behind a bush to keep the bush's camo the same, the camo rating of your tank itself still drops when you fire. So if the bush's unchanged camo isn't enough to hide you with your new lower camo rating, you can still be spotted regardless of the fact that the bush didn't actually lose any camo. It's less likely, but it can happen. This question concerns the issue if you're winning a flank but not by much, is it a good call to go back and defend the base if the other side is collapsing? This will always be a judgment call. At times you're gonna get it right, times you're gonna get it wrong. And honestly, this type of question is insanely difficult to answer because of course it entirely depends on the situation presented to you. The only answer I can really give is to think through the outcomes. For example, if there's a threat on your base and you choose to attack and get it wrong, you lose. The game's over. If there's a threat on your base and you pull back to defend and it turns out you weren't needed, the game still goes on. So I tend to go for pulling back and defending 60 to 70% of the time, because then the worst case scenario, I'm back in a defensive position and I can work out again. The game's still going on. So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for watching this Q&A and listening to that voice crack. It's been a pleasure. If you'd like to see more videos from my good self, some will pop up on the outro screen. You've got Learn World of Tanks playlist, and you've got a Stream Shenanigans playlist where you can see stuff like this.
It's 1200.
Thank you very much for watching, it's been a pleasure. Catch me live on Twitch over on the weekends, link is in the description. Other than that, have a nice day.
Strong like a Range Rover, hot like a flamethrower. He'll beat your chieftain in the talk, game over. Raping games and KV trains, rushing in and crushing things. He's crushing you and you just got a crush on him. From Mainz to Malinovka, he is a scary spotter, working fancy tanking magic, just like Harry Potter. And well, enemies have tendencies to be nothing but